Hey, Liam Ward here at LearnTheHarmonica.com. Today I'm going to give you some tips and techniques to get you started as a beginner harmonica player. So the first thing that I want to help you with is choosing the right harmonica. So assuming you want to play blues, country, pop or rock or folk music, then you'll probably want to start with a diatonic harmonica. 10 holes. And the one I recommend is this one. This is a Hohner Special 20 harmonica. I'll put a link in the description so you can go and find these online. This is the kind of all-rounder of the harmonica types. There are different types of harmonicas for different specialist uses, but I'm assuming that that's the kind of music you want to play, and so that's the harmonica I recommend for you. If you get the cheapest kind of free ones with a teach yourself book, they're just rubbish. And if you spend an absolute fortune, it's going to be wasted on a beginner. So this is a good kind of mid-range instrument. So once you've got the harmonica, how do you hold it? Well, the commonest way to hold it is by using your left hand to do most of the gripping. So we've got the numbers on the top. So number 1 should be on your left and number 10 on your right. That's the low notes, that's the high notes. And we're going to basically grip with a forefinger and thumb. So this is going to be our shape. The rest of the fingers can either just sit like that. I tend to sort of put them like that to project the sound. So you've got this layered sort of shape. If you do that, you're going to kind of cover up the hole where the sound should be coming out. If you keep your hand like that, then this hand is free to come in and out and mute and kind of wah, get different effects. You don't actually need both the hands to hold the instrument, although some people choose to play more like that. I'm going to recommend that to begin with. The only other thing is don't get too close to the edge here, because when we're trying to play the instrument, which we'll look at in a minute, it's going to be harder if your fingers are covering the holes or getting too close to them. Before I go on, if you're enjoying this video, then please click like. That tells YouTube to share this with more people who might enjoy it. And subscribe to my channel if you'd like free harmonica lessons every single week. The next thing we want to do is start blowing through the instrument, or less blowing and more breathing, because if you force the air, it's not going to do the instrument any good. The first thing we want to do is just get used to breathing in and out. So I'm going to just play the bottom 3 holes. This is a C harmonica, which is probably the one to start with. And you just want to get used to that breath, not forcing the instrument too much. But crucially, you want to make sure that you're as far on the instrument as you can get with your hand there. So you'll probably feel your lips up against your finger and thumb. If I move my hand, you can see how far I am on the instrument. And this is going to be really important for getting a good tone later on when we're playing songs. The next thing to think about is how to produce a single clean note. These are the basic building blocks of melodies and riffs and songs. So we really need to make sure we can do this in order to move on with our playing. There are 3 main methods for producing single notes, and you can use all of them if you want, or just one of them. You'll probably find that one of them makes a lot more sense than the other 2 for you. I'm going to go through them briefly now, but I do have more detailed videos on each method, so I'll put links in the description to those. So the first method, and usually the most accessible and intuitive for people, is called lip pursing, or sometimes called puckering. So what we're doing here is narrowing our mouth down so that we only access one hole of the instrument. So we're going to aim first at hole 4 blow. I'm going to keep my hands like this so you can see what I'm doing. So if I go with the just natural shape my mouth wants to make, you'll hear this kind of sound. Now, in order to isolate that hole, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push my cheeks in so that I'm not hearing multiple notes anymore. So it's just that slight change in shape, just bringing my cheeks in so that my lips aren't as wide. That gives me the single note. The next method I want to tell you about is U blocking. Now, some people find this helps them isolate the note, but it's only going to be useful for you if you can curve your tongue. So if you can curl your tongue like that, then that can help some people to isolate the note if they're struggling to narrow their mouth. So you don't have to make your mouth quite so narrow, and then your tongue will help you isolate it. I don't actually use this method, so I don't even know if I can do it. Yeah, there you go. And then the third method, which I do use as well, is tongue blocking. Now this can be mind-blowing if it doesn't make sense to you. So the weird thing about this is we're going to make our mouth 4 holes wide, which you think, well, how am I going to isolate the note? But the key's in the name, tongue blocking. We're going to use our tongue to block every note that we're not going to play. So our mouth will be over holes 1 to 4, and then your tongue is going to block holes 1 to 3, so that the air only goes through hole 4. So it's achieving the same effect as the other 2 methods, but in a very different way. So to start with, you just get used to playing that 4-hole width. Then I'm going to bring my tip of my tongue forward and to the left, to the lower notes, in order to block them out. And I'm going to do it slowly, and I'm going to stop when I start to hear that single note, that 4 blow on its own. So the shape is kind of like that, my tongue over to one side, and that is giving me a single note just as the others are. Tongue blocking actually helps you with lots of different textures later on, which is why some people choose to do it, but a lot of beginners think that it's impossible or it just doesn't suit them, so there's no pressure to use that method if you don't want to. Let's now talk breath control. Assuming that you've got a single note, I'm going to use the pucker shape, then you want to start to think about how you're controlling your breath in and out, because there's a real temptation to like that. I call that heaving, and I say to my students, breathe, don't heave. And that's because you're going to run out of air, you're going to hyperventilate, the harmonica is going to sound horrible, you're going to send the notes out of tune. So what we need to instead develop is an approach where the air just comes in and the air comes out. Our throat and our lungs are just a pathway for the air to move. They're not obstructing the air in any way. And if you are making sure that you're far enough on the instrument, as I mentioned earlier on, then you should be able to have an open airway and play the instrument and get good volume out of it without forcing the air. If you're finding you're having to force the air, then it's probably poor technique to begin with that's stopping you. Next up, we want to look at reading tabs. Now, tabs is a term that's short for tablature, and tablature is used for lots of different instruments, and it's basically a sort of cheat way of telling you which notes to play. So it's without having to learn to read sheet music, it gives you a little bit of an idea of how to start playing a song. So assuming you're playing single notes and you've got your breath control, then we want to start playing songs. So you'll find tabs all over the internet. Unfortunately, there's no standardized version of tab, but I use a very common form, And basically, blow notes are signified with positive numbers. So number 4 would mean 4 blow. And negative numbers, minus numbers, are draw notes. So -4 would mean 4 draw. And so on. There are other symbols for bends and for tongue slaps and other techniques that you might learn, and I've included in the full summary of this lesson, I've included a full tab format so you understand everything that I put into my tabs. So do check the link in the description for that. A couple more things I want to tell you about, and the next one is bending. So a lot of beginners are really keen to learn to bend. The first thing I would say is only start looking at bends if you're really confident with your single notes. If you're still sounding like this, don't learn to bend. But if you can, then maybe it's time to look at bending. So the absolute basics of it are that instead of being relaxed and your tongue just sitting as we would normally, we're going to take our tongue and kind of curve it up, hump it like that, drag it back so that we've got this sort of humped shape. That's going to change the airflow, and it's going to allow us to access 2 reeds at once, the blow and the draw reed. I don't want to get into the physics of it, but that's going to allow us to bend the note. So at the same time as doing that, we're going to kind of slurp the air a little bit. And if I do that on my 4 draw, you can start to hear that note starting to move. The actual pitch of that note is changing. Now, only certain notes on this harmonica will bend. Certain draw notes, certain blow notes, but not every one. I do have a full bending course as part of my online harmonica school. If you'd like to take your playing to the next level and you feel you need step-by-step lessons from beginner onwards, then check out the link in the description to a free trial of my school. I'd love to see you there. So the final thing I want to tell you about is equipment or gear. Now, more expensive gear will not make you sound better, so this is a little bit of a warning. You could go out and spend hundreds of pounds on a harmonica, you could spend thousands of pounds on equipment, but if you put crap in, you'll get crap out. So my advice is be careful about spending all that money unless you're filthy rich and you just enjoy it. I wish I was. But if you get to the point of playing with a band, you're most likely going to need a microphone and possibly an amplifier as well. So I just want to tell you quickly about those. If you want a clean sound, then the standard sort of industry standard microphone is an SM58. But if you're trying to play bluesy, gritty stuff, then you'll probably be looking at a bullet mic. There are lots of different mics available, but that's probably the kind of thing you'll be looking at. I do have a course included in my school all about gear, so do check that out if you're interested. And the amp that you're going to go for is probably a valve amp. They are the ones that are used most likely for blues. You tend to have the bass turned up and the treble down to get a big fat sound, a big kind of bottom end, and that gives you that dirty kind of big heavy blues sound. Using lots of gear can be really useful and exciting, but it can also detract from you learning the instrument as best you can. So I would say to be wary of getting too much of the equipment. But I do have a few more tips and information in the summary for this lesson on which types of equipment you might like and how to avoid feedback when using them. So check out the lesson summary in order to find out more about those. I hope that these tips and techniques have been useful for you today. If you've enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe to my channel. And if you're keen to take your playing to the next level, check out a free trial of my online harmonica school. I'll see you again soon for another lesson. Until then, enjoy your practice. Cheers.